See if I wrote down the name.
Long gallery, which inspired your architect. The poorhouse is an exact copy of that.
Oh, how interesting. So most of it's Blickling, but then this one detail.
That's the ceiling, yeah, that long ceiling.
Of the main
plasterwork of
hallway.
The main hall.
Down below.
Yeah, it was, I don't know whether he went there, but he was inspired by Haddon Hall.
Clearly, yeah.
But there's so many great houses there in Derbyshire.
Yeah, we were just doing the Landmark Trust thing, which is so addictive.
Yeah.
Once because you could spend the rest of your life doing them. And we probably will.
Who's the first one?
So.
Not sure. I didn't coming in. I don't believe so.
How was your trip? Nice.
Oh, we got to Venice. My mother had a wallet stolen the first day.
Oh, no.
And funny enough, the comps were there at the same time. So I
Of course they
were.
Of course they
And
were.
I said,
saw
watch out.
Where's Brian?
And Marty got his phone stolen the first
After
day.
you warned him?
Uh-huh.
Oh.
And then the
Really?
second day his wallet stolen.
You mean Marty too?
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's awful.
Well, that's number two activity in Venice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One is tourism.
Like a friend of mine in Spain, they were in Barcelona and everyone was eating outside and she looks down and there was a little kid and he had taken a razor and cut her husband's pocket. He just was sitting under the table,
Wow.
taking his time and I went, oh, that?
I remember.
Wow.
Because all the kids were playing and then eventually.
Scary.
You're so lucky here. Jefferson's lucky. So I was reading this book by Laura Shane Cunningham. Have you ever heard of it? A Place in the Country.
Wait.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Our chairman is not with us tonight, so we're going to have to, members have to have a vote to decide who's going to chair the meeting.
I elect Christopher Gow.
I second that.
So we have a decision. I will be the acting chair for this evening. So welcome. It's 5:27 to the Board of Architecture Review meeting of November the 4th. The first applicant is the Haydars. So if you'd like to come up, and as we have a new member here, what I thought I would do, I'd bring everyone up to speed to where we are, and then I'll hand it over to you to where we can continue. So the Haydars came with a magnificent plan by well-known landscape architect Miranda Brooks to add their own imprint to this already beautiful garden. And we were very happy with it and approved the majority of it. We normally, just for your information, with the landscaping plans, we ask for detailed planting maps like this with plants and everything. These are sort of typical things. So it's all very detailed so that we know and you know what's happening. But because the beauty of the plan was so wonderful, we went ahead and voted on it, except for one part. That part was the removal of 23 hemlock trees, which for aesthetic and functional reasons, we thought were very important to the garden. So we left it at that. And so, Karen, if you'd like to take over now and tell us what.
Just transpired.
Right.
So that was, I think, the beginning of August 5th. On August 8th, I had a licensed New York State arborist, an ISA arborist, come who has treated, who has been attempting to save many of our trees. And he gave an opinion, which I submitted for the September 16th meeting, and identified the fact that there were 80% of the trees have woolly algid and can't be treated so close to the lake. And frankly, I do not want to use, well, actually you can't use the pesticides now with the New York State
Correct.
new legislation, the Birds and the Bees Act. And through my further research, I've learned that both the Arnold Arboretum and the New York Botanical Garden have not been successful in treating with that soap or the Japanese beetle. I don't know what kind of beetles, but in any event, I was not interested in doing that. We don't use toxic chemicals on our property, and I'm
Bless
not
you.
going to be doing that. So, I was, had submitted that. I also had our landscape architect do some additional renderings. I thought it was on the agenda for September 16th, but I was removed the day before and was informed that the village, I think that the chairman had, and I don't know, you all can correct me if I'm wrong, had decided that we would, or that the village would be hiring an arborist, a village arborist. The village arborist came to our house on October 11th, and I believe that he issued a report on October 14th. For whatever reason, I didn't get that for a little while. I don't know if did you all just get this on Friday?
This is the first I'm seeing it.
Oh, okay. Well, it was only sent to Stephanie Rinza, and for whatever reason, she was not happy with it and asked the arborist to change the report. But the arborist did not. The mayor, I thought that was kind of outrageous personally. And the arborist did not change the report. The mayor said it is what it is. So you now have two reports from arborists. I would appreciate a vote now that it's been 3 months that we've been asking to remove these trees and replace them and restore the historic garden.
So I'm looking at one report, which seems quite persuasive. This is the one that the village.
The taxpayers have paid for.
And where is the other one?
It's going to be in the.
Well, it was
Or is
on,
this, can I go just on the basis of this one?
it's, sure, it's the same thing. It's pretty much
No,
this.
they're quite different. You should.
I printed out the entire, original packet.
Within
I will
this,
look
oh,
at that. Let me
I don't,
maybe it's.
explain
Okay.
why we weren't happy with this one. We had specific questions that we're not arborists, so we had specific questions for the arborist to tell us about the conditions of what trees, what the problem was with them, how that could be addressed, and the longevity, how long these trees would last if that was successful. We didn't get that, so that's why we wanted to. That's what we thought we were paying for, to get that information, and so that's what this. So that we can all share that information and make a decision with the facts instead of.
Understood, but within the bar's purview, it is not within the bar's purview to mandate the application of pesticides. Are we agreed on that?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yes, no, absolutely. So that's what we were trying to find out, what else is used in order to preserve the trees. That said, so we have these reports, and I was pleasantly surprised by them, because I just maybe naively thought that hemlock trees were 100% affected with woolly delgit. So yours are 80%, and vibrantly look amazing. Are one of the most beautiful spots in Tuxedo. I just saw them yesterday morning from the Village Boat Club on the other side of the lake. And there's your house and this beautiful green, it's almost like a proscenium arch, a curtain of the hemlocks, which looks, so aesthetically, it looks fantastic.
Christopher, that is your personal aesthetic opinion that contrasts with what with Mr. Linson, Connor Smith, both of whom are ISA arborists,
Right.
Miranda Brooks, our landscaper, and Saeed and I as property owners.
Exactly. This is about aesthetics, the Board of Architecture. So I'm just sharing my opinion for what it's worth. So the real nitty gritty, while we're not happy about this, is we don't like to repeal unless it's replaced. So what are you replacing it with? If you get permission to remove the 23 hemlock trees, what are you replacing them with?
I will have to, since you are all very, very nice and very, I appreciate your service as volunteers at the board, but I will have to speak with our landscape architect and our arborist to find out what is the best thing to replace it with.
Right, and that's what I was hoping would come today, because normally the landscape architects comes to these meetings so we can have these dialogues and we can, so we don't have to delay and then have another meeting and another meeting. So we can have a bit of a dialogue so that we can decide what is a great compromise so that you're happy, we're happy. And that,
If I can just interject, I mean, when we visited the property, I got not the feeling, actually, you said very clearly that Miranda Brooks and you, as the owners, were working really hard to take out, because there was a lot of editing to be done from the last owner. Like, there was a lot of overplanting, if anything, and a lot of non-natives. And you guys, to your credit, feel really strongly, as does Miranda Brooks, I gather, about, to some extent, trying to restore the balance in favor of natives. So that seems to be the ethos that you guys are working with.
It is.
And
but-
on the strength of that, what I would say is, I would be prepared to vote to approve on the strength of her reputation, her work, which I've seen widely published. When we did a site visit, I was very sort of happy with everything that was indicated and I was seeing. And I think this one spot is going to be kind of the showpiece of her work on your behalf. And it's going to be stunning, replacing the reflecting pool and so on and so forth. And it is a very architectural moment in a garden that is otherwise, as I said, really strong on the arboretum elements. I mean, there is no shortage of plant mass and, wildlife habitat. To the contrary, there are, I mean, I don't know if you've ever done a population count, a census of your trees, but
I have,
it's,
actually, I
but
have.
it must be well into the hundreds. I mean,
No, it's closer to 1,000.
okay, so high hundreds, right?
Right.
Not counting the understory bushes and everything.
Right.
And again, I think it's really to your credit that you're not using pesticides. Some of this is just illegally mandated, but in general, just even in terms of the lawns, you're not doing any of that,
Right.
which is great. You have tapestry lawns. I guess what I'm saying is that, yeah, an ideal scenario, I agree with my fellow board member, that would be nice to hear you or Miranda Brooks say, wow, we're using inkberry here. And then we would know entirely. But in situations like this, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, we've said, we are approving, this part. I think we've already basically approved the entire program in the past meeting. Maybe we should, this was the one sort of outstanding element, but we could say, okay, we will take a vote on this as well, with the proviso that whatever does replace falls within that category, that is, going to, continue the good efforts of, restoring the balance of natives,
And frankly, there's a
Be it
historic
ink-
picture. I mean,
inkberry
there
or
are no
whatever.
hemlocks in the historic picture, as Mr. Linson pointed out.
they do look 50 or
Um,
60 years older.
Well,
70
we'll
or
find
so.
out, because we will find out. I'll count the rings. Some are older than others, but they're certainly not 100 years old, because
But one thing is for sure, they were planted, as we know, the way plants are used. These were used in that context in a very architectural way.
and as a hedge.
And they're superannuated for that purpose. I mean, they really, quite apart from the fact that they are disproportionately affected by the adelgid, they are no longer doing what they were planted to do. So they were not planted as park trees or like an oak in the middle of a park or a field, which was meant to maybe get some 100 years of life, I
Absolutely.
don't even know what the lifespan is
And-
typically of a
Well,
house.
also, it's, and one thing that I was surprised by when there doesn't seem to be a concern that this is destroying two original historic stone retaining walls. And Mr. Linson, noted that in his report. And
Well, I
that's
think they were
also,
so well built, you barely noticed that, but it does stand to reason that heavy root action could.
well, I mean,
And I guess maybe it has.
has.
Yeah.
And they're crowded. There's no, I mean, they are bare. I'm glad, Christopher, that you find beauty in them. But that is your personal aesthetic, opinion.
Right. Well, what I was just saying as well, apart from the beauty, the function of them, they are native trees, and there's a lot of them, and the hemlock trees are almost as good, they're half as good as oak trees in supporting wildlife, and in the number of caterpillars they reside there, which are so important. So it's a huge ecological, the most important ecological part of your garden. That's one aspect. So generally, when people want to cut trees down, we for example, with the most recent one, we like to replace what's been taken away with similar or twice the amount to make up for it. So a mature hemlock tree being replaced by a bush is, to me, is going backwards and not forwards. The other aspect you touched on about the wall, I think the 23 native trees is so much more important than a wall. There's miles and miles and miles of wall in Tuxedo Park. There is only one grove of hemlocks like yours. It's unique. And
Well, Christopher, I have to, I would spend a lot of time reading the architectural guidelines, and the preservation of original walls is heavily favored
oh, of
also.
course. Oh, absolutely. Yes,
So-
yes.
And I don't see anything in, I mean, as you can, and I realize that you're new, and we haven't actually been introduced, but it's nice to meet you. Within our plan, we are planting a tremendous number of additional plants, and there will be an emphasis on natives, but I don't see anything, again, in the regulations that mandates twice as many of the trees that I am taking down.
Right. I mean, this is, this is a guideline, a wish on our behalf that what we're trying to do, as you're very, very well aware and on board with, the ecological health of your garden, of the park. And so, so that's what we're trying to do. We're not trying to go backwards with it. We're trying to go forward and not just stay status quo, because there's so many trees that are dying and need replacing. So when somebody's doing something like this, we like it to be a net positive. So that's what we're aiming for.
The one other thing that I would just chime in with, just so we're all sort of including, as many of the contextual, sort of arguments and observations as possible here, to be fair, on both sides, to, what our objectives are, understandably, and what we value, but also, what the applicants is dealing with on their side. I mean, this is a large property. This is over 10 acres. This
No, it's
is
5.7 acres,
5.7.
but it has close to 1,000 trees.
heavily
Yes,
wooded.
it is.
And when we met, I think I asked idly, one of you, how many hemlocks you have total, and
120 hemlock.
thank you. So, I mean, so if you're talking about, species specific, issues of ecology and, eating, breeding, gestating, all that. I mean, there is a real appreciable population of this tree, even on this property, to say nothing of the fact that we're wedged between, two parks where hemlocks are well represented, admittedly under duress for a host of reasons, including the ability to intelligent. But I mean, I guess I feel uncomfortable placing too high a price on these 23 trees where they are as part of a program, that is being put forward by you and your designer, Ms. Brooks. Again, I also feel, having been on a couple of these boards for a long time, I sometimes am worried when we see top level talent that, by hook or by crook, our neighbors manage to bring in here, kind of end up leaving in a huff when we make things difficult for them to do their jobs. And so, I mean, my own feeling, and again, I am one member of a board. We all have slightly different inflections and opinions or priorities, and it's moving from project to project. In this instance, I really feel uncomfortable trying to tell Ms. Brooks, no, you can't realize this part of your vision and the client's vision because of 23 trees, that have a sizable caliper size at this point. So
They're actually not that, when it really comes down to it relative to other communities, they're not that large.
the trees, right?
In other communities, very few of these would be regulated.
Right. Well,
That's what Mr. Linson
and
explained.
I think also, I guess they're at a caliper size where they do fall under the provisions that we're talking about.
Absolutely,
I just feel uncomfortable sort of making this a battle because I think there are enough balancing considerations,
I
certainly,
appreciate that. I really do, because
to
I
warrant
appreciate
this.
that.
I
And
don't
part of the
think
reason
the-
she's not here right now is because I had another site visit, which was rather expensive in August. I had her come up because you and Stephanie were very adamant about these hemlocks, and she looked at, she looked at me and said, why would you want to do this? Why are you putting good money after bad? These trees are completely bare, they're crowding out the trees behind them. They're not part of the original historic plan. So, forgive me for not wanting to spend more money on another, hour of time on this, because I did what you asked. There are now 2 expert reports recommending removal. And
Well, my interpretation of these reports is that that the trees need treatment, like we all need treatment to stay healthy, and that they're not dead. And I don't know how long they're going to last. There's something I'd love to ask the arborist about.
So we were up at the Arnold Arboretum, which is owned by Harvard University. So their hemlock growth dates from 1810. They had 1,900 hemlocks. They're treating them with these beetles and oil, and now they're putting some other stuff in them. But since 1997, when they first got infected, now 100% of their population's infected and 500 trees have been lost, and they expect that all their hemlocks are going to die. So they're going to eventually replace them with Chinese hemlocks, which are fully resistant to woolly adalgid. So all those trees are going to die, and all our trees are going to die eventually. So they're all going to die anyway.
And
Well, this is the thing, the
they
report
were
says
pla-
80%
and they were
are
pla- they were
infected
pla-
with woolly adalgid.
But they were planted as a hedge,
Well, let's finish with
originally,
your
they were-
first point.
not kept trimmed. So that's why they're planted so close to each
Okay, there's
other.
2 points there. The first point is you said yours are 80%, which is, as I said, was fantastic because most are 100%. None of the arborists mentioned the elongated hemlock scale, which is what the problem is with the hemlocks at the New York Botanical Garden. Yours don't seem to have that, according to both these.
These Arnold Arboretum has had those since 2013, but they also had woolly adalgid since 2001,
Christopher,
and they're all dying. Okay, and they're much
Saeed,
larger
I can
trees.
make this simpler. Okay, we are going to take we're going to take down 4 trees this year, whether because that's our legal right. Okay. And if you're not going to approve this, that's fine. We won't go ahead with this part of the garden, but we will every 4 year, we will take 4 trees down a year. I find this incredible. We've been totally transparent. This particular home that's a new construction home. Ours is not, we're restoring a historic garden.
can I interject as well? I mean, there is, again, I think I've made my feelings known about the application and what we should do vis-a-vis this particular question, this one outstanding question. John, is there also a possibility, because I feel like to force the applicant's hand to do 4, 4, 4, and 4. And my understanding is that if you have a sick or diseased tree, you're allowed to do that above and beyond the 4 anyway. But setting that aside, let's just assume you can't, if they're not dying enough that they fall into that category. So let's assume that you can only do the 4, 4, and 4. Can the applicant not go with or without a recommendation from this board to the BZA just to get a variance to that number and take all 23 down? Is that an option?
I read the law and it requires approval from the bar and then the Board of Trustees.
I haven't spoken yet, but I do.
Okay.
I have no quarrel with it. Based on what you presented and based on what this arborist presented, and that it was originally a native type hedge, and that the original presumed design for the garden was that the hemlocks be maintained as a hedge. Haydars are open to using a native hedge type species as a replacement to the hemlocks. It's a lot more straightforward for me.
Thank you.
So we're going to come back to your second point about the historic gardens. Having worked at the Garden Conservancy, where there's a 501c3 charity where we restore historic gardens. And it's like a performing art. It's based in Garrison. And what it is, we have the original designs, for example, even with someone like Olmsted. And we never go back to the original designs because they're planting Norway maples, things that aren't as appropriate as they were then. Also, as I say, it's a performing art, so things change. And this garden has been one of the gardens that the most love and money has been poured into by previous owners creating it. And so there was an intent with these allowing these hemlocks to grow. It wasn't just negligence, there was an absolute intent. And in my opinion, my interpretation of that is the intent of these creating this cascade on this side was obviously preferable than just a conventional hedge around it. So things change. It's like with a house, when you renovate a house that has 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th century wings, you can't restore them all. So which one of them has to, you have to choose which one is the predominant one, which one makes more sense. So my interpretation of this is that this very unique sweeping grove of hemlocks is far superior than the original intent of just a mere hedge. So,
Well, Christopher, with all due respect, this is our home. This is
Right.
private property. That is your personal opinion. You are a lay person. I realize you have a vote. And in order to go to the BZA, I would need a vote.
so we can. Are there any other issues you want to
Just a question.
discuss?
Would your designer be open to what Rob had mentioned, which is to just propose the idea or the intent or the syncopation or how that might feel and go from there but not hold you up?
Well, I think we have discussed an ilex, but that was not, but I don't want to be hemmed in,
Right.
with a commitment without actually speaking to them. Yes, the people who are licensed and are experts and that we've hired, and it is a private garden. I realize it's on the lake. I am both a conservationist and a preservationist. I'm not, I would like to have people see our garden, but ultimately it is private property. We are complying with the law, but these trees are coming down, whether it's for a year or the 23. And we will hold up our property, our project, and I may lose Miranda, for this part of the project if I'm unable to proceed, with it, because she has a different view from you. She sees them as,
Absolutely.
right.
And so what we're trying to get is, we're trying to get to a compromise. You've come up with a plan and you want it 100%. And we're saying, we're not happy with this part, let's compromise. Or if we do agree to this 100%, what are we agreeing to? We haven't agreed.
In like, how many hedges, Karen? Like 800 hedges, 1,000?
It's in the application,
Whatever.
Well, no, the
but-
names aren't. We don't know what these are being replaced with. If there is a plan that we can, that we sign off on, and this is the plan we've agreed to, you're protected, we're protected, everybody knows what's happening, instead of it being loosey-goosey.
I think, in fairness to Christopher's point, I think that we should build into any resolution, a proviso of the replacement being something that the board is happy with after the fact. But as one board member, I would really like to see this advanced at this meeting, and to have this sort of just question answered. I feel very sort of uncomfortable about the keeping these 23, keeping the entire garden redesigned, and Miranda Brooks's commitment to a very exciting project. I hope it's exciting for her, but I am excited just as a member of this board, but also just as a resident of the community to see that level of talent coming to do this important thing. So I really, as one member of the board, would really like to see this resolved. And if we can answer some of your good and worthy concerns by building in that proviso, then I'm all for that too.
Same. I would like to not hold the project hostage, but leave this one arena, just to simplify it.
Yeah, not the question of are they coming down, but what will replace them. We can,
I would say what was presented originally is a form of ilex, which is what the photograph of the 1920s photograph.
is
Can we
it,
even
yeah.
leave that open? I mean, are you okay to proceeding with okaying the plan with what you just recommended, which is simply,
I'm happy to
Oh,
proceed with Ilex as well. Which Ilex is it?
I'm not, I have
Oh.
to do some research because I have to see what's the most.
It's a
hardy
big
and-
family, but
Yes, it is. And some are native and some aren't, and some are more prone to insects. And I would like to pick something that I don't, that has the most likelihood of
Yeah.
not needing any kind of
well, a
treatment.
nice way of sort of moving forward constructively now in a way that leaves everyone happy or minimally unhappy. Maybe just to say, may it be a native Ilex of your and your professionals choosing that does all that hits all these marks. That's going to be, insect resistant, but native and therefore useful, ecologically here, right?
would be that narrow?
I would prefer not to have it. I would prefer not to have it be that narrow.
The problem,
Doing a resolution of something that is so clearly a big issue and needs to have absolute clarity of what the problem is and how it's going to be resolved. I mean, even the aspect hasn't been discussed by any of the arborists about how removing these trees, removing the roots with mature oaks and beeches just right contiguous to it, how and repairing the wall. How are they?
I'm not
those-
repairing the wall. I'm trying to leave the wall exactly as it is. I'm really trying to, because I don't like the look of when people take like, I know that.
So the wall is fine.
Might
you're
redo
saying?
No,
Or-
no,
Oh,
I'm
you're keeping it.
trying to keep it, I don't want to have to take it all apart and put it back together, because then it doesn't look like a
Right,
tuxedo
no, I
wall.
agree. Yes.
It looks like, from
That
suburbia,
sounds
Totally
right.
valid.
Yeah.
right? So,
But the point is about the roots, about the other trees, the compromising the roots, of digging out all these roots and replacing them with these, with the, whatever.
well,
you want
Mr.
to replace
Linson did talk to me about that,
them.
well, he didn't put it in the report. We spent a long time talking,
Well, that's,
spent an hour.
well, I wish that we were paying him to provide these
I
guys.
didn't ask you to hire him,
No, I'm
I-
saying, we hired him to have all these concerns answered.
Well,
which
he
weren't.
was perplexed, frankly, why, he couldn't believe why he was there. He said someone had called him practically in tears about 100-year-old trees, and he wanted to know where the 100-year-old trees were.
So that's where I stand, that with applications like this that are contentious, we need to have a very clear plan of what we're signing off on. It cannot be loose. And
Well,
so-
let's clarify.
And that's what I was hoping you would come today with a real clear
Well,
alternative.
let's clarify it then.
It's.
We'll say with an ilex that is native of the applicant and their professionals choosing.
Do you feel it's necessary to even dictate that when they clearly are going to come back? And I mean, exactly what's here, and even though this isn't part of what the original purpose of Mr. Linson going, but where it says that you're open to using a native hedge type species as a replacement to the hemlocks. The original presumed design was for the garden was that the hemlocks be maintained as a hedge. And we
I'm
leave
satisfied with
this
that decision.
aspect out of it and have just that returned with then an approval for however the size and species and syncopation and look of what
Can I
that would
stop you,
be.
Julie, for a second? But not leave that out, include that just as you read it,
Just,
and leave any
I'm
additional
trying to say,
specifics
can we
out.
leave it open
Yeah.
to just that
Just
piece
that.
of it so
Yeah.
that they can.
I'm
go
happy
ahead
with
and
that. I think that what you just read seems very sensible.
Well, the problem is that Ilex glabra in Bury would never look like this.
We don't have to call out what that species is if it comes back for approval for what that is all.
But I mean, there's not many options out there that, you know, to do this, to create this.
Well, I trust Miranda Brooks to come up with a solution.
Well, I do too. I want that solution. Where is it? I mean, we've had plenty of time we've been going backwards and forwards about this for so long, and we don't even have a species.
No, we haven't gone back.
Simply canceled the meeting in October.
We were on the agenda.
I mean,
Day before, we were supposed
And
to have.
we were on the agenda on September 16th. I was happy to appear from a business trip from Europe. And Stephanie took us off the agenda.
Because it wasn't complete. Exactly the same concerns that I have, that there is not a complete thing that we can actually vote on and say, this is being repealed and this is the
Well,
replacement.
I do-
That's the problem.
I do believe
We're
that,
suggesting that it's 95% complete, 90, whatever percentage, nothing else is in question. Can we suggest that they proceed? And the part that's in question, that they come back when they're prepared to.
and I think
For that, if
the
that's
specifics.
acceptable to.
And I think the specifics of the rest of the project in general, there is something like innocence by association. You know, this is a very ambitious, very well thought through, beautifully turned application in my view. And again, I just don't feel comfortable sort of waylaying it at this stage. I think to the extent that there is missing information, I think that's partly attributable to us because we made such an issue of contention, these hemlocks, such an issue of contention that all Klieg-lights were trained on that one question, in my view, unnecessarily. And what Julie just read to me is completely satisfactory in light of the strengths of the application in general.
Thank you.
But-
I'm reluctant to commit to a particular species without actually going shopping and conferring with her. Other people plant lots of things in Tuxedo Park and they don't come here. And I've come here with a very comprehensive plan to restore an historic garden. And I feel like this is not a way to encourage applicants to come forward. I mean, I'm ready. I'm actually, like at this point, I really am at the point where I'm ready to just say, Miranda, let's just do the other half of it and forget this. And I'll take those hemlocks down because that's how upset I am. I feel like we've been treated really poorly.
No, we're trying to get all.
I'm not saying by certain people on the,
We're trying to get all the information together, and I'm just very uncomfortable. And as I say, we voted on this, and this is a beautiful plan, but it's very lacking in details. It's almost like a concept of a plan, and it is beautiful. But you have a very high standard. You've done a beautiful job with your house, so we know your standards are exceedingly high. We know Miranda Brooks's professional reputation is very high as well. So we voted on it, where normally we wouldn't vote on something so schematic. We'd want details like this, specific details.
that's a new house.
And so,
That requires a lot of, isn't that a new construction?
no, it's been nothing about the construction, it's about the garden. It's about what's going where and which trees are being removed.
I understand that, but that house has been gutted and is being renovated. And as part of that,
No, we're not, we're
a
talking about
comprehensive-
any landscaping plan is that's what normally happens. This is the standard that we have the information. So if you come to the meeting today without telling me, giving me a comfort factor of what the hemlocks are going to be replaced with, I cannot honestly vote. I cannot. So if you want to come back with a more detailed plan of saying, yes, we've done our research, The Ilex glabra is going to be too short. The shamrock hybrid, it may work in one place. I imagine Miranda's going to come back and say, you know what, the only thing that's going to work here is privet. And so, you know, if you come to, we want to replace 23 hemlock trees with a privet.
But in fairness, you can vote against it. I mean,
Well, I'm saying that we can certainly vote now. I'm not happy to
She-
approve
Yes,
it.
I would actually like a vote because I would like to proceed and with the either the Board of Trustees or the BZA. Because I've been waiting for 3 months and, you know, I also have taken up Miranda's professional time. You know, I booked her she's expecting to do this in the spring. And if I'm not going ahead with this half of the garden, I need to let her know. I mean, that's a professional courtesy. I don't really feel comfortable dragging this out and not being able to tell her whether or not.
So, but what did Miranda say was?
She's like, I don't understand. These are the ugliest trees. Look, they're completely bare. They're diseased.
Well, that's
They're
what this
supposed
guy
to be-
Winston said
and-
also, that
yes.
The back of the trees is all bare.
I mean, she had a completely different opinion. That is your personal layperson opinion, with all due respect.
But my question was, what was the replacement? What did
Some
Miranda
form
say?
of, some form of ilex. And she understands that these cannot be treated, so it's something that we'll have to really look into.
To make sure it's resistant to
But
disease.
I'm not looking for a privet because that's a deciduous plant.
Invasive.
Yes.
mhm.
Well, I'm not putting in invasive plants. I'm taking out invasive plants. I'm taking out the burning bush. I'm taking out a lot of invasives. And, but this has been dragging on for 3 months.
Well, I mean, so going to the aesthetics, I don't know of a native plant that is going to have to create this beautiful effect of a bush. It's going to be scraggly and you'll be unhappy with it, I'm sure, because it's going to be, I've never seen it. And that's the problem.
No, I'm committed to doing natives predominantly in our garden. Maybe this will have to be the one thing that isn't native. I don't know.
And this is the thing, this is my problem, that giving the precedent of removing 23 native trees and replacing it with something that's not native is a big ask.
But you know,
But
Christopher,
can I
also,
just- Can I just interrupt? I'm so sorry. If in general, in the largest part of this program, the goal of the applicant and the professional is to reduce the number of non-natives and increase the number of, I mean, I think that alone, on the strength of that, we should basically cut the applicant some slack here. Even if this particular one weren't to be, a direct, replacement of something native, obviously a different species, but also native. I mean, even if it were to be a non-native, I think that the number of places where you are mitigating that problem speaks for itself, and I think should count for something in how we weigh this. I don't know if she is trying to achieve that same effect. As I understood it, based when we went on the site visit, that isn't what she's trying to do. Like any screening from the road would be farther upslope, and this is meant to be a slightly smaller gesture. Is that
it is. It's
right? So
6 feet.
I don't know
6 to 8 feet.
why the question, of scraggliness or, insufficiency would come up, because I can think of,
It requires pruning. It will require pruning.
but I think it's an eminently achievable effect. I mean, I also do think, just coming back to this, because it is an interesting sort of argument about garden design and maintenance, because of course they do change and they're meant to change and they're meant to be rolling and expanding and maturing. And in some ways, they're more beautiful than ever many decades later. But any good garden designer will tell you things age out and get replaced. And there's constant editing happening in small and big ways. I mean, setting aside disease, So, I mean, just as a philosophical matter, I have no problem with it either. I mean, I can remember reading, Fletcher Steele would come in and just like take everything out of Joseph Choate's house before he then started over. And, like they come in and they're play fast and loose. Again, I think here, nicely, that's not even what Miranda Brooks is doing. I think she's actually being very respectful of the older parts of the garden and sort of just adding here, subtracting there. with some
Our
deftness. but-
goal, that is our goal, but, you know, this has been very contentious and very upsetting. And, you know, we're dealing with a big drainage problem from uphill of people who have removed trees without permission. I've come here, you know, with a plan and seeking permission. We do have 5.6 acres. We have close to 1,000 trees. I'm asking to remove some that are maybe not diseased to the extent to which, you know, you'd like to, before they're removed, but they are diseased and they're not going to get any better.
They're all gonna die eventually, right?
Well,
They
we're all
can't
going
keep
to
them.
die, so.
But the Arnold,
it's not
like the
about
Arnold
this.
Arboretum, which is run by Harvard, right? We were just up there last weekend, okay? They can't, they can't keep these hemlocks alive, right? No matter what, you know, and I'm
Well,
sure
they-
they have people who are, you know, who are professors of whatever and who are looking at all this stuff and they've tried various things like these beetles that eat the woolly adelgis. So now they're gonna they're looking to plant Chinese hemlocks that are already resistant, but those won't be native trees,
Right.
but they'll still,
Or maybe crossbreed them.
you know, but they'll still take, you know, right? They'll still take the place of those.
I mean, have you heard of the lingering hemlocks, lingering ash? The emerald ash borer, there's certain ash trees that are resistant, which are so important because they use those for the research to find a cure for the emerald ash borer. And it's the same with hemlocks. If there are hemlocks that are naturally resistant and
Canadian hemlocks are resistant.
But
And
this
so-
is also, this is our home and this is our private property. And I realize we live in a historic community, but this is not, I mean, this is visible somewhat from the lake, but you know, it's
well, no,
not.
it's
really-
not about your property, it's about the precedent we're setting here, about people
Okay.
coming here and removing 23 trees with not an ideal replacement.
But what about the people who just remove trees and
Large trees.
large trees
I mean,
and
this is like a couture issue. We're dealing with your garden. We're not dealing with it off the rack and comparing to others. We're focusing on your garden. And if you came to me saying that okay, 23 hemlock trees, we're going to replace them with 23 or 46 somewhere else, and we discussed about possibly moving them or replacing them with then I'd be so much happier.
But
Then
I
would
do-
be, but replacing it with a edge of ilex or something vague, I cannot do that.
But it.
If you were specific, if Miranda had said, yes, this is what I want to do, and we're going to do the black cherries here, and we'll have a grove of this here, then then it'd be make it so much easier for me to say yes. But you're making it very difficult for me to say yes because there isn't a clear plan to
But
replace
just,
it with.
but just to come back to the meeting, I mean, we can take a vote and you can vote no if it's which is absolutely, and I
Well-
respect your.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't want, if we take a vote now, I will be voting no. And so it will not carry. But I'm saying if you had given me a little bit more to play with, I would have happily voted yes, and you would have had a unanimous decision.
Is the concern that we're talking about just removing this one piece of it and that they'll come back and present something for that so that they can get out of the gate and keep going? I mean, my brevity of my response is in no way insensitive to the concerns that you have. It's just that that's just kind of how I operate. But I feel like if they came back to you with this particular area later and get out of the gate so that they can keep moving, is that a possibility to consider?
Well, everything is approved except that the pond is just this one grove, one line of
Well, do I
trees.
need a unanimous decision to proceed to the?
You need three. You need a vote of three.
Well, what about going back
I
to,
just need a majority?
No, it has to be.
because this is a bare quorum. So what about going back to
You
the,
can't win by a 2-1 vote.
No,
So-
it has to be three. So that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
I'd love.
So let's just cut the trees down, Karen. Okay, and no, okay, we'll just cut them all down.
Okay.
They're all gonna die anyway, okay?
All right.
Because they're dying anyway
So-
already.
But we want.
Okay.
can
we
we,
want-
can
we
we,
want
can we
to have a
stop for one
nice
second?
replacement. We want-
Christopher, can we stop for 1 second? Can we-
Right, you know what, we've spent three,
Can-
this is not the way, this is not the way to get people to
I would
come
like
to
to
the
try to
park.
save this situation. I would like us to create a resolution, as I laid out earlier, that allows for this to move forward with the proviso that the applicant on the the advice of the professional will come back with a replacement that we can sign off on.
Will you be happy with that?
You know,
I think that's probably what we need to do.
I'm not sure anything's gonna make you happy, Christopher. That's.
No, it's if I know exactly what you're going to replace it with, and Miranda said, well, I've tried this, and says, the Ilex Glaber is not going to work because it's going to be too straggly. That's not the effect I want. I want, for example, what is the beautiful round part? What bush is that going to?
That's already been passed, Christopher.
And what is it?
It's an ilex. It's a form of ilex, I think.
I thought it was boxwood.
Well, that is a form of ilex, isn't it? Isn't boxwood a form of ilex?
No, no, it's not.
It's hue, sorry, it's hue.
So it's, the boxwood. So, it's, if she said she wants to put boxwood there, that's equally prone to blight and to box tree moth, which is just attacking us. You can't even buy it now. You can't even ship it. You have to quarantine it. It's even more of a problem, the boxwood, than the hemlock.
But you'll have the opportunity to say that at that time.
So I'm
And
saying
in the
with all
mean-
these problems, what is it you're going to replace it with? And then we can say, we can say, great, go ahead. And these are the problems you're going to have with it. And these are the advantages. So, but I just,
And
I hired this person who is, and I generally, when I hire people, I really kind of defer to their expertise,
I would like
I'd
to,
love that expertise from it. That's all I
so
want.
I would like to
At a
honor the
later
fact
date.
that the applicant has come forward openly and has said what they're going to do. They have not gone behind the village's back, behind the board's back, just clear cut a ridge or something, and then we have to deal with that. I don't want to punish, because of matters of precedent on that, an applicant who is coming forward voluntarily with great specifics, with the highest level of professional input. I feel very uncomfortable with blocking this application at this stage. What I would like to propose is a resolution that allows for them to remove the infected trees that are superannuated to the purpose, and with the proviso that you will come back on professional advice with a replacement that is votable. We will probably have a quorum. It'll be a different number. Can we resolve this? I don't feel comfortable sending applicants storming out because of our intransigence.
None of us do. The part of the solution I was hoping you would provide, and you've mentioned it, one of the things was a robust riparian buffer. So I would love to see the plans of that riparian buffer, because I don't want to believe it's just throwing that out because I love hearing the word riparian buffer, that there is an actual plan for riparian buffer and how wide it is. And if it's a significant riparian buffer, which is for the layperson, a filter of vegetation to protect the water, the nutrient load increasing in the lake from all the water that runs down, because there is a huge water drainage problem on your road and with your neighbor's house.
Well, actually not in that particular spot.
So that's what I'd like. So if,
That's a different question than the hemlocks, which I think is the issue that is at hand.
No, this is what I'm not getting. This is why I'm so befuddled that it's a huge ask to take these 23 hemlocks. So what is the replacement? So it's what is the quid pro quo? So it's a nice riparian buffer, and it's a native hedge, and oh great, we're winning. It's becoming not a net loss, it's becoming equal. That's what I wanted. At the moment, it's a big loss. We're a net negative. After this is finished, it'll be a beautiful project.
I don't think it's a negative. I'm planting, a 750 perennials that for pollinators, and that is just not to say it's just a negative.
No,
You're putting a
overall, the
tremendous-
trees, 23 mature trees. We're not focused. The rest of the project is all approved with our blessing. and our admiration and joy. And we're very impressed with it. And that's why we voted for it. This one little issue. Where is the details of the riparian buffer? Where is the detail of the thing? So yes, we can make a resolution to come back with those details. But they're missing you said a riparian buffer, but it's not, we need to know where.
Why don't we just outline the things that are missing? So it's what we replace this with, A, and I'm perfectly happy to ask for more details on the riparian buffer because I have no doubt that Miranda Brooks would have 1,000 good things to say about how she's going to solve that. So right now, my objective as a member of the board is just to see that one of our neighbors, an applicant who's doing the Lord's work across these 5 acres, doesn't leave when they've come in good faith and applied in good faith, disgruntled. So if we can draft a resolution that solves that problem, I will feel much relieved.
That's an absolute possibility. Would that be fair to you? Would you be happy?
Yes,
with that?
but you seem to be adding extra things into it.
No, you've said it. It's in writing here about a
Let's start
riparian
drafting
buffer.
the resolution.
Yeah, what
So
can,
it's-
Let's,
can I ask you to take a stab or?
No, I'll
Or
be happy
maybe
to
you
make the
take-
resolution to put in the actual specific things that I think are missing. If you are comfortable with that, if you're not, then there's no point in us doing it. But I'd be happy if to have you remove the trees and do this replacement plan that Miranda's done, do the riparian buffer and select a native species to do the hedge and anything else that can do to replace the goodness of the trees, because yes, there is, they are absorbing a lot of water. You don't have a drainage problem because you have these mature trees.
You're saying the
Once
riparian
trees-
buffer becomes even more important in the absence of these large, right, which I
Exactly.
think is a fair point.
So does that make sense? Is that a fair ask?
Yeah, as I said, love to hear your resolution. I'll take it back to Miranda and to my husband, who obviously is not particularly happy right now and may not want to go ahead with the project. I'm not sure at this
So-
point.
So I'd like to make a resolution for the property at, what is your address again?
119 Turtle Point Road.
119 Tuttle Point Road, for this specific plan of the south garden of removing the 23 hemlocks to be replaced with a native plant hedge and to provide a substantial riparian buffer of native plants along the water's edge. As per the plan by Miranda Brooks on the 10th of July 2024, and revised on with the additional update of the panorama of the southwest, and which we will call page 1 and page 2 of the view of the northeast on September 5th. And so you will come back with that plan. So we give a conditional approval.
Okay, so can I take the trees down?
Hold on a second.
Once you give this plan of what the riparian buffer is and the species of the hedge, then the conditional approval will be full approval. But it's conditional on that.
So I cannot go to the Board of Trustees now.
Well, so the sooner you get the right.
Well, I won't get this for a while from her, I'm sure, because everything takes a long time. So
Well, I
I'll
think
be
you could
taking-
get conditional approval from
Can I say it
the
doesn't need to
BOT.
be a full, it can just be literally an email with specifying the plants, the plant materials. I mean, which is something she could do at the top of her hand. Seconded.
All in favor?
In favor.
Aye.
So you have a unanimous vote for that. And the question about going to the BOT to have the trees removed, I guess they could give a conditional approval as well. And as soon as that riparian buffer plan is presented, and then we're all good.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Thank you for your patience and
Okay, I actually don't, at this point, I'm not sure whether site don't want to go forward with it, but it's for the additional approval.
okay,
Does he want to come back in and we can explain it or no?
probably not.
We have to go, we have to
Okay.
go back to the city at that point, but I'm not sure he's gonna want to spend all the money given the way that, the difficulty and the fact that not everybody is held to this kind of standard.
No, as I pointed out, the more detail, the more we're on the same page, that we understand each other by print, the easier it is. When
Not everybody comes here because of this, and that's the point.
Can I say one thing? I think you're very close. I think what you're doing is so exciting. Karen, I really hope that we haven't spoiled the process in a way that will stop you from doing it.
Well, thank you, Rob. I appreciate your support. I really do. I really do.
So hang in there, drive safely,
Thank you.
get back in one piece.
Thank you.
would the next applicant like to come up, please? It is
Westlake Road?
217 Westlake Road. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Christine
Take one,
Ethel
pass it on.
here for Jonathan Pomerantz.
Who is?
Was here.
was here.
He didn't realize this was gonna go on that long in the meeting. It's, on the other side, you know. But he said he'll try to pick up the phone if you need to.
So to get up to speed, the issue was there was the application, the original application that was made was to replace, repair 2 of the 3 carriage doors because there was enough material to repair 2 of them. There wasn't enough material to repair the 3rd one. And so the ask was to glaze it in. The meeting was cancelled, so that opportunity was not provided. Since then, the work went ahead, which was rather upsetting because, especially since the person involved with it was the chair of the Board of Architecture Review. So we are here now with the owner's representative, and we'd love to hear what you'd like to propose.
So the house was purchased and the doors were exactly like this. So we're here to talk about the piece of glass, and there's an open permit on the piece of glass, which Ryan is not a homeowner anymore here. He does not live in Tuxedo Park anymore. So this is something that Ryan has created. And to close the permit, we just want to put back what was there. And in these photos, the handyman said, yes, I can put the hinges on and I can put it on. And we can have it exactly the way it was.
Great.
Well, the way it was falling apart. The original plan was to get it up to scratch like the rest of the house.
Well,
So
there wasn't an application to redo 3 brand new doors ever. It was just this one door, and that meeting was canceled.
let's see, we're rebuilding 3 arched carriage doors on street side. There are 2 half doors remaining. We repurpose rebuilding them to match what is left of existing.
Sorry, I did not get that piece of paper.
Yeah, this was the original.
Yeah. And is the door,
That's the original.
and so what we're trying to do is recreate these, is that right?
Well, the first order is that, are we happy with a sheet of glass where a carriage door should be?
Right,
If
can we
we-
just
Not as a
approve that?
permanent thing, no.
Well, let's move forward. So if it was not voted on, it's there. Are we going to ask the client to remove it because it was done without permission? And or can we come to a compromise?
speaking for myself, I'm eager to hear what both of you think. I would think as, simply replacing the door so that it can be there much of the time or almost as the kind of default. And then you open it when you want the flooded
Same.
with light. Right? But I would not ask someone to undo the glazing, but to put back
Put
the
the doors
original.
back on.
Yeah,
That's what we were hoping because cars don't fit in these slots anymore. So they've turned it into a gym. And then we can open the door to let some light in because it's very, very dark down there. So even though I know it's a violation and we're just asking, can we just put the doors back on right now to close the
I think
permit?
it's a great solution to the issue.
Thank you. I met with someone and he said it is possible
To put the hinges back
to
somehow.
put these exact doors back that came with the house.
And these are, but there's only one set that's complete, but there are multiple doorways, or no? I'm misunderstanding.
The other one is hanging.
Okay,
The others are fine. It's just this one
okay.
for the little gym
Got
area.
it,
that lets
got
the
it.
light in. So we're just trying to.
So you only need to fix one, restore one of these sets of.
This last image.
The original application was because, not because of lights, or being a gym, it was because there was,
The doors
drafts.
themselves.
No, there were drafts
Yeah.
coming through and it's making the house impossible to heat.
I see.
So the original application was that's how it was presented.
Right.
And that this was the option.
Mm.
It was clear the benefit of the window was to add more light in. So it was a little bit misleading.
Mhm.
So I would be happy to have the compromise of keeping the glass, so it's not an expensive renovation. But not just to slap on the cheap plywood doors, and that a little bit of money would be spent to make them nice, so that if the house does sell, the homeowner doesn't rip them off because they're failing and they're terrible and they're cheap. We'd want them to be there permanently,
And
so
when you
that they
say
can
nice-
open and close.
And Christopher, when you say nice, you mean sort of getting back.
Restoring, yes, exactly that.
That I think would be the ideal scenario.
I think he wasn't looking to spend that kind of money right now after all the money that's been spent.
Well, it's not as if it's a small ask. We have to go back and repair what the damage that was done by, to clear up this violation. So in order to do that, the ask is a little bit bigger to do not just a cheap plywood, it's to make it look as appropriate as possible.
But the homeowner didn't put the plywood on, the house came like that. And
Right,
that's
the-
why
the-
we're asking, can we just put it back the way the house was received?
I wouldn't be happy with that, because then if you're going back, if you want to go back to the originals, how it was, then there wouldn't be a glass there.
Well, where were these doors that we're seeing here?
Those are the original
Those are the doors.
Right, but where, you said this is the way it was when they bought it, but how?
No, sorry, the glass wasn't there.
No, I know.
This was there.
Right, and you keep saying that this is the way it looked.
Right, this is how it was when they bought
Correct,
the
but
house.
then where was this? hanging
That's
down?
inside. I guess this was put on to strengthen this because it was wobbly.
Right,
So
but it was
this-
a part of the structure.
Yes.
So yes, this is facing,
And I think
inside.
what we're saying
this was
is
just to
to
strengthen. it.
replace what was part of the structure.
They're asking to replace in like kind, meaning exactly what they had there without
Maybe I could
without
just flip
improving
them
it.
around.
And what you're suggesting is
Oh.
that, do you
Maybe
have
I
the
just-
backside of this door?
Yes, that's what's here in the green. Maybe I can just flip them around.
Here we go, there's the back side of
Right.
that one, that one's
Okay,
good.
this is the image I was looking for.
So maybe if we just paint that black and just flip them around.
Right.
It's there.
There's one good side.
Well, you
Mhm.
can't. just
Which
flip
that's the
them
back
o- I mean, you
inside.
don't know that they'll fit. I mean,
Yeah,
they're,
we held them
can you
up.
retrofit them? And,
That's the thing. I think that,
okay,
I know actually I spoke to them.
okay.
That I said, you have to follow this. And he said, okay.
See, that I think is a great solution. We're taking a bit of a mistake and improving.
It has to be an improvement. In order for us to vote to keep the glass and not tell you to take it out, these doors cannot be just cheap shoddy doors on the outside of plywood. They have to be, even without even without the glass, the just keeping of a cheap plywood door on a beautiful building, we would not allow. We would tell you, you have to repair that door because it's a cheap plywood door and it's not appropriate to the standard of Tuxedo Park. So if this is replaced and this repaired and a replica is done there,
Right.
then
So
we'd be
this
happy.
replica on the other side is fine.
Great.
This, I think, is not possible. This little square cone just have it straight.
That- yeah,
Just run it
I
right
think-
Because that's just like a whole nother expense. that-
Totally.
Right.
Totally.
So if it can just be straight,
Right.
like this, photo. If I
Yeah.
can just
Just
get that
use-
photo.
use
done,
this
is that
as a
possible?
model.
This is what we can vote on now. that
With
it
a
would be-
nice, simple iron strap, just like that. And I can suggest a good metal worker if you don't know.
So
So
we
that's-
can leave the glass and the doors have to look like that.
Exactly, yeah. So they're appropriate. And so that they look the part, that they're carriage doors and they're in good condition and not just some plywood just slapped up and so that they, up to historical standard for a beautiful historical building. And that would,
Okay.
and that would behoove the selling of it as it's for
So it's a
sale.
great enhancement, yeah.
Okay.
And we would, with that, as, good standard, we would be happy to remove the glass.
Or leave the
Leave
glass.
the
the
glass,
glass.
leave the glass.
And, yeah.
And copy
Leave the
that.
glass.
Yes.
Okay. And then once this is done, I bring you a photo?
I'll inspect it.
Okay.
How many panels are needed? I mean, we're only seeing one that's really looks like the original. So you need to swap this for here. But
I'm
then,
just gonna have the guy,
It's a
like,
pair.
It'll.
I'm gonna have the guy just redo it.
7 or
well, there's obviously 2 for each door.
so 8 total. So what you got
You
one?
need 5.
You're saying I need to redo
Well, that's why I'm asking, how many are, how many can you flip? You can flip this one possibly, but you can't flip this one because this is not emulating.
Mm.
a
Are we here
Barcelona.
for all 3 bays?
Sure.
I mean, that was the application for
Okay.
3 days.
I might have to have them created and made, custom made.
4th day on another,
No.
oh, there isn't, okay.
Mm-mm.
On the other side.
I mean, the
Will have to be
Oh.
custom made.
I mean, another option is, I guess, I'm not sure what they look like inside, but if you take these doors off and they just open, I'm not sure.
Were these fabricated? What's currently there?
No, these are the original doors.
Is there anything on the inside that you can
Just
salvage?
bluish green, but I think I just have to have a die copy.
So, yeah, so we could, we want this beautiful house, we want these doors not to be just plywood like that. We need them to look historically accurate. And then if that's on all 3 bays, and if that's the case, we'd be happy for the sheet glass to remain. And that when the room is in use, the doors are opened. But when it's not in use, the doors are closed. So you don't see this glaring modern,
So with the doors on the outside of the glass.
Yeah,
right,
exactly.
on the outside, yeah.
Okay.
Is that,
Okay.
and as I say, the other alternative, there's nothing in these bays and there's no doors on them. I mean, may look strange, but I think replacing the 3 pairs would be best. Because they're the most visible part.
Okay.
And that's important because what was previously approved on the side of the house where there was a door and we had agreed to this side here. We had agreed here that there's doors there, and so we had the before and the after. And the after looked as if is just like the doors were still there. The actual after looks like a glaring,
That's
panel.
the extra exposure I was talking about. Does that not need to be, so that has to be fixed as well?
Well, we voted on this, and the original doors are still inside. It was just a little bit misleading that the picture, of what it looked like afterwards, you could see the
But
doors.
I'm suggesting that we should fix that problem the
I-
same way.
I think that whole thing is closed.
It's all been approved.
Oh.
No, that's been approved. I'm just
Oh.
saying that,
I can't spend any more money.
Okay.
We have to stick to this plan.
Right.
We can't just go to it.
no, so I'm just pointing out that that was the problem there, lack of details, not, going into the
So
granular
it was
detail.
done
This
as
happened.
approved, but then the effect was different from what was
Correct.
anticipated when approving, I see.
The doors are on the inside though,
Right.
but this actually has to be done to keep the mice out.
Right, but, so the effect looked like the doors were there always, which is not the case here because you need the light in here. The reason I'm bringing this up is that on this one, We do not want the doors open all the time to see the glass. We want them only open when he
Right.
uses the
The
gym.
default is closed, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So that's very clear.
But
because-
in all honesty, this sheet of glass keeps the mice out.
Oh, I'm sure it has, yeah.
I keep catching mice.
Oh, really?
So are we ready to go ahead with this? With what we'd like to?
Sure.
So I'd like to make a motion for 217 Westlake Road, the Pomerantz residence, to replace and repair the 3 pairs of carriage doors to match the existing original style. The opening can be there or not. We're not worried about that, but they need to match that style, and that the doors would be closed only when and only opened when the gym or the room behind the sheet glass is being used. The email, the documents dated October the 11th, 2024.
Second.
And pending inspection, once you have the plans, pending inspection by our building inspector. So you have a unanimous vote to do that.
Thank
And you can
you.
keep the glass. But let it be said, we very look down upon work going ahead without permission, and to get it approved retrospectively is a big ask. And sometimes we will do it, but there'll be more things to add to make it
To compensate
To
for
compensate.
the error, right? But I think this is a great resolution.
Thank you. I do have a question. It's not on the agenda. It's just a question for all of you. There is a historical house that has this 70s go-go glass that I think they put on so that people in the street can't see inside.
we have to get it on the agenda. We
No,
can't
I'm
really
just-
opine on it.
Well, but I don't know.
It's on
that.
the agenda.
It's,
for
yeah,
next
I don't
time.
own this house. It's on the market.
Well,
and how
if
do
you
you
don't
get-
own it, we can't really opine
How
on
do you
it.
get info on it if it's on the market before you buy it? How do you get approval
Oh.
if you don't own the house before you buy it?
Get the owner's permission.
The owner doesn't know who's going to buy it.
No, we can't
Catch-22.
opine on somebody else's property. It's not,
But let's not talk about whose it is in general. What year do you think this glass is?
1972.
Thank you. What year do you think the glass is?
I'm not opining on it. It's,
No,
we have
I'm
to
dealing with a
move on.
Similar situation
Oh, so you know what I'm talking about.
personally with the same. kind
Sorry
of
to keep you
glass.
waiting.
But
Did you have a quick
because it's
question?
not stained
But
glass.
it's somebody who's having a Woodstock moment.
You would have no
Wait, so
problem
what
having
I'm-
that
Right now,
replaced.
because he had a question about
That's fine.
parliamentary
Thank you.
procedure.
Thanks.
If you have a quorum, didn't understand why you couldn't just vote on the trees and have it be a majority, either passed or not passed by 3 people.
Oh, we know, we've approved it, a conditional
I
approval.
understand that, but he is not happy with this conditional thing, thinks it's ridiculous. So, I'm asking why you chose not to do a vote because you said it wouldn't pass because there were 2 people who might vote yes and one who wouldn't vote, who clearly had said he would not vote yes.
Right, and I'm the one that would not vote yes, because I
Yes.
don't have enough information of what the end product is. Once I get that, mine will be 100% yes. If I don't get that, then it will still be conditional.
The question was about a quorum.
It has to do with a quorum and whether or not 2 to 1 is passing or not.
Oh, no, it's not. It has to be a vote of 3. Is that correct?
Yes, historically, it's a majority of the full board. So the full board would be 5, the majority would have to be 3. So when we have a minimum quorum, any vote would have to be unanimous. Planning board, zoning board, and the Board of Architectural Review.
And we're down one at this meeting. I'm sorry.
You're down two, actually. There's been an open seat for a very long time.
Okay.
But, I mean, all understandable irritation aside, I mean, the substance of it, I think we're there. And, so,
I understand that, but when I return, it will be 19 trees, and if I return in January, it will be 15 trees because they're coming down. That is what, and whether we go ahead, I'm not sure. So we'll have to see.
Mr. Matthews, thank you for your patience. Good evening. Good evening.
evening.
Nice to see you all.
Likewise.
Welcome to the board. I'm Jacob Matthews, and I'm here to discuss a roof on a property that's been in my family for many, many years, since the early 1980s. And I don't know if you all have had an opportunity to review any information that we submitted or that I submitted.
Yes.
You did, okay. Would you indulge me to talk through some points and some thinking that I have behind this presentation and afford me the opportunity to do that? Given that I've waited probably well over an hour and a half to 2 hours. And I've also waited another 5 years from the last time that I was here to discuss this roof. It's been a very disconcerting situation to come to the end of the road on trying to replace a roof that's heavily degraded and to feel that we don't have options. And so I think what I'm here to do is to discuss with the board if they would consider a certain amount of leeway with the guidelines, and basically an exception to what I believe to be a very unique situation. And I do think it's a little difficult being down a board member with a vacant seat and also your chair is absent, but hopefully you can establish a quorum and a potential vote, but we'll see. The roof that we have in place right now was put on in 1999. It was at the discretion of my mom at the time to try a cedar roof. It hasn't worked out material-wise. For technical reasons, it hasn't worked out. And the roof previously had, when my parents purchased the home, an asphalt roof. And we have pictures of that asphalt roof in place. In fact, at the time, it was 3-tab shingles, which are sort of the lower type of quality. Now they have architectural style asphalt shingles, which very closely replicate what is in place right now, which is weathered wood, essentially. And so I have a number of considerations which I think make this property and roof situation unique, and I'd like to go through those as I bring up some photos for the board just to peer into, which make this a little bit more vivid as opposed to a printed document. And can you see that?
Mhm.
Yeah. So these are existing conditions of the roof, and as cedar ages, you know, you have issues. I also want to take a step back and explain sort of, you know, how I view the village, my ethos on things. And that is, you know, I live and work here, I'm born and raised here. I have a tremendous amount of respect for the architectural integrity of Tuxedo Park. I have almost an encyclopedic knowledge of the homes in Tuxedo Park. As a youth, you know, I was hired by families who owned large estates, some of the more historic estates, to house sit, to mow lawns, to take care of pets, to help them with projects around the house. So I gained a great knowledge of the architectural features of Tuxedo Park, of some of the great estates, as well as a lot of the stables and carriage houses. There are very few homes, I can probably count on one hand the amount of homes that I have not been inside of Tuxedo Park, from the very bottom to all the way to the very top. And so I know materials, aesthetics, roof lines, all sorts of things. And I have a great respect for what the board does here, and I see great meaning in what the board does here. But I think that the guidelines are just that. They are guidelines. I don't see them as code. Code has a function. Guidelines are meant to be just that and have variables to them and account for unique situations. And that's the nature of getting projects done and done successfully. So I ask you to sort of keep all of that in mind as backdrop, not as specifics. I think we have a unique situation with regard what I would call grandfathering here. And we're able to substantiate it, and I believe the board has cover and reasoning and foundational reasoning to allow a change or a revision in material based on the fact that we have photos of the home previously having asphalt. That asphalt and the change we made from that in 1999 predated the implementation of the 2012 guidelines, okay? Had our family known that we would never be able to switch back, as was communicated to us in 2019 by a 5-member board, or maybe it was 4 at the time, I'd have to look back, we may never have made that change. Because now we're in a position where we are pigeonholed into maybe not being able to do that. And I just think that's wholly unfair. So we may have, on the understanding that guidelines would have been put in place that we would never make that change, we may never have made that change. And I think the board should look carefully at that because it may have the unintended consequence of many people out there who currently have an asphalt material to not be encouraged to try to make a switch to a new material because they know they may never be able to come back to an asphalt if they don't. So that's my thinking on sort of the baseline of it. So the point being, I believe we have a scenario of grandfathering here where pre-existing material of asphalt, we have photos from the 80s during our ownership whereby there was the asphalt on there. So that's cedar as we have it now with some animal intrusion. It's heavily degraded. We also have technical conditions such as low slopes in certain areas. It's a gambrel roof. And then there's low sloping areas. This is almost nearly flat. And so the application of this needs to be treated in a specific way. Obviously, this was not potentially the right solution. So was that in addition, that flat part? Or was that original, do you think? That was there when we purchased the home, presumably was original. Yeah. Let me just see here. So here's the home in approximately 1980s, prior to, so that's a 3-tab shingle asphalt roof. There's plenty of evidence to show that it was there. And that's why I think the board has, for lack of a better word, cover. You're not creating a precedent where somebody is just randomly switching. We had that. We actually had asphalt pre-existing. We're proposing something much more attractive that, sure, when you look at these materials from 3 feet away, you're going to notice a difference. When you look at the material from up the road or on the street, or even 20 to 40 or 50 feet back from it, you can hardly notice the difference in the material that's proposed, which is Timberline HD, and the color is uncannily matching. It's a great match. It's beautiful, if you ask me. So we've put it in situ just to give everyone an idea of the lack of impact of the change, but the benefit to us is great. So we have, number one, the pre-existing scenario of asphalt. Number two, asphalt is in wide use in Tuxedo Park. It's in wide use on Clubhouse Road specifically. I estimate that somewhere on the order of 90% of the homes on Clubhouse Road are using asphalt shingle. And if you drive around the park, you will see every day large homes, carriage houses, stables, and even estate homes replacing asphalt roofs. So we're being stuck in this no man's land, and it's causing a real issue. We have been told by numerous roofers that cedar shingle is a difficult material to use in this application due to the orientation of the home, the openness, and orientation toward, southerly sun. Those types of things really put a beating on the natural material. And I can't tell you how many roofers I've spoken to, or many who are well respected in the area, who've said, don't do it. There's no reason you really shouldn't be doing that on this roof right now. And they're also saying that the shingles that are coming out of factories now are not kiln dried, they're not what they were, and they don't stand up to the test of time. So we're really not eager to go back down that road. So we have technical reasons for not wanting to do cedar again. The shed dormers, as they are right now, I believe have a rolled membrane on top already, which is appropriate. The roof of this home does not face the street. It is perpendicular to the street. So as you come down Clubhouse, you can catch a glimpse of it from an angle, but when you look at the home dead on broadside, you're just looking at the front of the gambrel roof. You're not even looking at the roof itself. You're just looking at the gabled end. So that, I believe, is a consideration. This is the street view. Okay, like that. So you don't even see the roof from the street. Number 4, I think, sorry, I apologize. That's number 5. Number 6, the spread of cost, I believe, is a substantial consideration. In fact, it's a hardship. We have a financial consideration here. There's other maintenance to do on a home that's 140 years old. This is pre-1890 home. And we're not in a position to afford that. So what option do we have? I don't have another option. I have no other option. So I believe there's reasoning and foundational reasoning for this board to use its discretion on guidelines based on financial considerations, which is documented. And at the risk of reminding everyone, this is not an optional aesthetic feature. This is not the color of the paint. This is not, a shutter that goes on the house. This is not, the color of the gravel that somebody's optionally putting down to do, pebbling in the driveway. This is to maintain the integrity of a structure that we have owned for decades and loved and continue, may continue to want to love. There's many other considerations, such as warranties. You can't get warranties on natural materials, on cedar. But you can get warranties on an architectural shingle. So those are major considerations. I implore you to consider those. The architectural guidelines I have reviewed. I've met and spoken with numerous well-respected roofers in the area, names we all know. The architectural guidelines, they're just that. And again, I mean, they even mention asphalt ridge caps. So there's guidance on how to deal with asphalt within the architectural guidelines. It's dispiriting to see the amount of asphalt roofs that are in this village being replaced all the time by property owners and not to be able to do something to maintain our home. So I implore the board to consider allowing us a reversion to what previously existed prior to the guidelines going in place, and allowing us to switch at our discretion to this material, which has been specified and submitted. And I thank you for your time and consideration of this subject, and for taking the time to meet, and for your service as well.
Would that
We need to look at the guidelines. You know, here's where I'm hamstrung. I don't have a quarrel with the replacement of the material. It's just, does it fall within the guidelines, which we are as a board tasked with? That's it. That is the long and the short of it.
Can I ask
Right.
a related
It's that
question?
simple. Just.
Sure, I can
Yeah,
give
we-
some feedback on that though. Yeah.
Before you do though, I'd just
Thank
like
you.
to ask a question that's directly, pivots off of that, which is just procedurally, is there a reason why we can't sort of listen to these very good, forthright, well thought, beautifully articulated arguments, and at the same time not make a misstep in terms of precedent simply by remanding this to the BZA? Is there a reason procedurally why that wouldn't be an appropriate course of action for this board? Simply say, take his very valid and well articulated arguments of hardship to the body that can freely, without setting any kind of a precedent for this board, allow a solution. I mean,
My understanding is if this is denied, the applicant can appeal the BAR's decision to the BCA.
so that would be the process and,
Yes.
My thought
I
is,
have-
yes, my thought is the original roof was shingle when it was built. Is that correct?
This was built
We don't know, right?
pre-1890, so it's a little bit difficult to tell. I don't want to make conjecture. I'm not informed on that, yeah.
Right, so that would be the original, so that would be the standard. The big picture is, we replacing asphalt with asphalt is, we always want to end up with the situation of people leaving the bar, that it's an equal situation or better. This situation would be going backwards, would be reversed. And we don't want to set a precedent of having a higher standard and then going back to a lower standard. It's, we're in a historic district, as you know, we're on the historic register. And I see a big difference with, a carriage house that has the luxury of a beautiful cedar shingle roof, as opposed to an asphalt. With an asphalt, it looks like a secondary, a building. With the cedar roof, it looks like a proper home, proper house, and adds some gravitas to it. And I wish there were no asphalt roofs in the building.
Can I just pontificate for a moment or ask your consultation? I mean, when the choice here is, I don't want to get hung up on sort of, I don't know how to phrase it, just stepping away from, the actual moving into the aesthetic. I mean, how do you view the aesthetic of that right there that I'm showing you in situ against what's there? I mean, is that offensive? Is it completely dumbing down the structure? We're not asking to change the roof line. We're not putting on extra dormers. We're looking to put a beautiful cap on top of this house so it can remain for another 140 years. I mean, the aesthetic is there.
in fairness to the points that Christopher is making, and I think that we do try to kind of observe, there is definitely a measurable, visible, evident difference in terms of the kind of sculptural layering, shadowing, et cetera, et cetera.
Because the cedar is buckled. It's
Even
curled and buckled. I mean,
buckling or not, I mean, you see the layering of it's a different thickness.
sure.
It's you can see it, especially in certain places around the edges. Right, particularly the edge that's at eye height sometimes. And again, there's well sort of used asphalt shingle and less well used asphalt shingle. But you've seen, where it sort of curls down or it's sort of slightly, it's a dangerous material to use. It can very easily be misused. And it does inevitably have a kind of flatness to it relative, by comparison with cedar.
Of course.
That said, the
Yeah.
coloration that you chose is indeed, I take your point, and that on that one basis of the the color at 100 yards, that was great.
They've nailed it. I mean, hats off to the designers, whoever's creating the product, because I don't think you could get it any better. I'm at a loss to understand how the board can find a way to find cover with the 8 different points that I've provided.
Well, I think the points are really persuasive. I'm just wondering if they aren't more appropriate for a different body than this one. But
My feeling is as a board member, the only thing I have to go on is absolutely no quarrel with what you've brought up, but guideline number 2, is there room in number 2? Because this is our document.
Well, it
It's
says
a
similar,
guideline.
it says similar,
So-
yeah,
But
sorry.
it's a little, yeah. and I mean,
Replace
I think
in-kind
it's
materials that are
appropriate to refer to it.
deteriorated beyond repair. New materials should have a scale and texture similar to the original. Doesn't say that it has to be the original.
But it
Well,
does
actually, it does
say,
say
it does
in
say in
kind.
like kind.
it says in kind, yeah, replace in kind.
So.
But these are guidelines. So
I
guidelines are meant to be
I understand
either
that.
followed or varied based on case-specific scenarios. I can't think of a better case. I mean, yeah, again, it goes back to coming in front of these boards where they're, and this is not what's being addressed here, but I'll tell you, it goes on in this village where people do things and then they come ask for forgiveness and they get forgiveness. I want to be and have always held myself to be an upstanding citizen where I come forth and have an honest dialogue with the community and the boards. Every time I want to do something, come to John, say, John, what are the steps we need to do? And this is an unsustainable situation. I don't have months and months to go down the road to go through this board and that board and ping pong around over a material that's so widely used in the village. It
Can I-
just,
can I
it's
stop you
not
for a-
understandable. It's
Right.
unfathomable.
I hear you. Can I stop you just for, like, just so we understand what the facts are
Yeah.
in terms of the timeline? Were we to do this, which is to say, these are very persuasive, and yet, number 2,
Hmm.
therefore, take a vote, say no, kick it to the BZA. John, what would the timeline be for that?
The BZA wants their application and paperwork in 30 days before a meeting,
A full 30 days.
full 30 days. Their next meeting would be, I believe, the first Wednesday in December. So you'd have to get that paperwork in this week, and it may already be a day or so late. And the earliest you would be heard would be the beginning of December, provided they have a quorum, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I'm 5 years past when I should have done this roof. So,
I am aware of the
Yeah.
fact that we're entering, the lean months. That degradation is significant.
No, I hear you. I'm in the
Yeah.
same situation.
look, I mean, if you go to Ridge Road, there's a house on Ridge Road that sits, the former Woolley Pendle house. It sits broadside to Ridge Road. It sits down in a pit, Woolley and Mary Van's old house.
Oh, yeah.
It has a replacement asphalt shingle roof, GAF architectural shingle product. Everybody's in their right to do and replace that if they had it apparently, which is great. But that house faces broadside to the street. It's the same gambrel style roof, probably the same architect, may have been Bruce Price on the back of an envelope. That's how we ended up with these carriage houses probably. And that one, again, here's the street and here's the broad side of the roof, faces it, and all you see is roof. All you see is asphalt roof. Here I am perpendicular to the street and with a pre-existing thing and a financial concern, and I have no out. I've got no route. What's to say that we're gonna get through that next board and be able to do something here? I mean,
Well, I mean, it's, the precedent is very clear. We have never approved going backwards from a shingle to an asphalt.
but has anybody showed you photos of the home having asphalt prior to the guidelines?
Well, it's still, I mean, once.
That's relevant.
I mean, it's all your points are relevant. But I personally want to maintain the historic standards of Tuxedo Park and always increasing it, or at least staying level. I do not want to see our standards go down. That's where I stand. And so I understand it. As I said, I'm in the same situation as you. I need a new roof desperately. And I'm not in a financial situation to replace it with what it was originally, shingles. I can replace it with asphalt, because it is asphalt, but I want to do the right thing. So I'm just waiting until it, whatever.
So property owners are endowed when you purchase a property with something that's called PSED. It's an acronym for possession, control, enjoyment, exclusion, and disposition. We have possession of the property, but we've lost control of it as a result of the guidelines being too stringent and not having any ability to interpret them based on a unique situation. That's where I'm at. And so I feel that's unfair. It's not a nice way to be treated. And I don't know what the remedy is. That's where I'm at.
I mean, it's, you know, Tuxedo Park, the way I see Tuxedo Park is the property is cheaper, is relatively cheap compared to other places for what you get. And the price to pay is the tax a little bit extra, and also the higher standard of historical restoration. So that's how I see it. It's like an extra tax. So that's how I see it. So that
I think
it's,
roofs fall in a different category, and now we're, we can talk wax philosophically about it, but I think roofing falls in a little bit of a different category. And what I'm understanding here, and what the village may understand now, is that there are, how many roofing materials are approved in this village? What are you allowed to use in this village? I asked the board. What are the specific materials you can use to roof your home here?
Slate, cedar shingle. We've recommended what do you call it, raised seam steel.
Or standing seam,
Standing seam,
Yeah.
thank you.
aluminum or steel, right?
Terracotta for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
There's one you're missing.
And asphalt, if they
Thatch.
have used asphalt.
Widely used, well, thatch, yeah. Widely
and
used.
asphalt, it's
Question, is there no way that the BZA can expedite applications so that it's less onerous just in terms of the schedule?
It really depends upon the BZA and what they want to do there. Just like your board meets the first and
Right.
third Mondays of each month, the BZA meets, I believe, is the first Wednesday, because their meeting is this upcoming Wednesday for another applicant who was before the board a month or two ago. I mean, just for the record, so we have it out there, Carol Ann Nicholson, who owns the house just uphill from here, sent an email in earlier today in support of changing the roof to asphalt.
Is there anyone who has sent a note saying they're in opposition to us doing it? I haven't solicited the community. It's not my style, but I think it's a very obvious situation. It's a no-brainer, but I appreciate that from Miss Nicholson. Is there anyone who sent a letter saying they're in opposition to a change?
No.
Okay. Again, their guidelines are not code, so I think this board is well within their purview to have some discretion.
well, that's it. It's, you know, each is an individual case and each has different hardships, different criteria within the overall standard. And as I say, for me, my problem with it is this going backwards of
I just encourage the board to think about the unintended consequence that's being created as a precedent here. And that is, I believe there are a host of people in Tuxedo Park who would be willing to switch to a natural material, and they're going to turn their head the other way and not do it because they know that if it doesn't work out, they're never going to be able to switch back. And I think there's an unintended consequence by not allowing some flexibility here to creating many more situations where you're not ending up with the intended result, which is to go upward rather than sort of downward as you would have it, although I don't think it is.
well, we want to give that flexibility. We could also put it into code that it has to be a shingle roof in future.
I don't know if the village would be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's but as I say, you know, it's just as long as we're equal or improving, that's but we cannot go back, as somebody said.
That's my presentation.
Well, it's a-
That's all I have for you.
Fine presentation, and you, as far from where I sit, you've basically already done all of the homework for the application of the BZA. Those hardships are very well thought out, extremely well argued. I cannot imagine that it won't get a variance. And I hope that they can expedite the scheduling of it, so it's not that onerous.
I can't be assured of that.
No, you can't, and I'm not trying to put you in that position, but I'm just,
Just looking at me as you're saying it.
sorry. You are
Because we want
the
to.
face of officialdom, yeah, like it or not.
Sure,
Yeah,
but,
a role you wear gladly.
no, I mean, typically, once the application is submitted, I forward it to the BZA and, the applicant to make a request to.
Could we make a recommendation?
You could.
Yes.
That is the expedited.
Bring it.
Whatever you're comfortable with.
Okay.
I would like to submit to the record that within the architectural guidelines, it does say, it has the word substitute, when it talks about, replace favorably kind or substitute materials, must be high standard. Roofs, look at mock-ups of samples in the proposed roofing materials. I have done that in situ. And weigh alternatives carefully when planning a new or building renovation. We have weighed the alternatives for these materials. So I just submit to the formal record that that has been done and that the architectural guidelines on what is known as page 17, or when you pull up the PDF, it actually results being page 9 if you go to print it. References ridge caps for asphalt shingles should terminate before the eaves as above, not carry through below. So the guidelines specifically reference asphalt at certain points, substitute materials, and quote unquote materials that new materials should have a scale and texture similar to the original. I also submit too that within the guidelines, they reference that there are many new roofing materials available. And that suggests that people ought to consider materials other than what was described as simply already in place. So again, I want to stress that I greatly respect the board's work, what you do for the community. I think you've done an amazing job on a multitude of projects, and your advice and guidance to the community is valued through and through. I know that, but I think that the board ought to consider exceptions to the guidelines in unique situations. And so with that, can.
Well, I think we hear you, and I think it would be, we'd be doing backflips if there was a cedar type that was a mixture of cedar and something else that would give it more longevity, give it that nice sort of looked and felt, smelt and behaved like a cedar shingle instead of an imitation.
Mhm.
But that it's like with solar panels, we're looking for, solar panels that
There
like
are
a slate.
products that do more clearly mimic cedar shingle. My sister redid a house 20 some years ago, and it was extremely effective in mimicking cedar.
The
So
costs, I've
healthy.
explored a lot of this. I mean, 5 years and sleepless nights will make you explore these things. I trust, it's
And
true.
those products are also fairly
Yeah,
expensive.
you're gonna run into those cost concerns again, so.
It may not be double, but it would be half again as much. You're saying.
It might be on par with,
Oh,
in fact,
really?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Just with less wear and tear, right?
You're
With
right.
The long term.
Sure.
Longevity, would it? did they-
Potentially with the longevity,
guarantee?
yes. But the issue here is there's other projects to do on a 140-year-old house, so I have to budget accordingly. I can't afford that. So just to be blunt, I mean, so that's, if you're saying that that has to be taken to another board and that another board will hear that, is that what the village is saying?
I'm unfortunately saying no to this as under the Board of Architecture Review, and you're welcome to try other avenues, but I think we very strongly want to maintain historic standards. We do not want to diminish them. We want to keep them even or increase them. So that's where I stand.
Yeah.
I'm saying that I would love to say yes, and I'd love to be able to not be slavish to certain parts of the guidelines. But I also know that the guidelines they're not murky enough for me to go in the other direction.
And I think
I-
that's,
and I
I think
really
that's
would
well
love to.
said, and it's more or less, or it's in fact exactly as I'm feeling, as you both have laid it out. But I hear all these very good arguments, and I think that they will be persuasive with the BCA.
I've heard this very board, though, make hardship exceptions on materials. An example on an outbuilding near a lake where a door failed and somebody wanted a synthetic material and they were able to do that. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that this body can make hardship exceptions. So why not in this instance?
The roofing is a big visible factor.
It doesn't face the street.
Because you've got this extra garden, wide plot. When you come down, you see the whole expanse of the house, and you see that beautiful gamble roof. And so and that's, when you're driving, you're not looking like that, but when you're driving forward, you see it. So when you're going downhill, so it is one of the more visible roofs.
What is the concern of the board with putting forth an approval on this material? If you were to do it, what is the concern? Do you feel you're opening up Pandora's box on reversals of?
Yes, we're trying to improve standard. We're trying to get the level. We're trying to get no asphalt roofs. That would be ideal, because we'd like to get it as original and as historic as possible. Because they do diminish the look and the.
And that street is a jewel, is a historical jewel.
By no
For all the
reference.
obvious reasons.
Yeah, I mean, listen, my family has renovated and restored no less than 3 homes on that house, on that street over
right?
50 years.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, let me see. Our family has remodeled and renovated no less than 3 homes on Clubhouse Road over approximately 5 decades. We've been residents and owners on this street since about 1970. In 1970, will always have an eye for quality, aesthetic, and taste. If ever there were people who cared about Clubhouse Road, it is our family. I mean, that's sort of, anecdotal to a certain extent, but not really. I mean, we really have an eye toward,
Meaningful.
listen, I've been on calls where other people are proposing projects, and I've had recommendations to the board that were well received because of my historical knowledge of the street and of other properties. And I think it's worth something. But far be it from me, I'm not on the other side of the table, so I'm just here to ask and plead my case, and I appreciate you hearing it.
Well, you do so incredibly professionally, and that's so valued by
Thank you.
us.
So what's the process? How do I guess, I mean, I'm being told to put this toward an appeal. Is that correct?
You can't appeal it unless there's a vote, in
Okay.
a position from the bar.
Right.
And can we vote no in order to advance that stage, and then write a letter as a board, sort of urging them to take it seriously? Almost to talk in 2 directions, or is that
Well,
completely
I think we
inappropriate?
should be
I
influencing
support
the
it.
board.
Okay.
I think they should make their own
Okay.
decision. We just vote on it.
Okay,
If to get to that stage, we'd have to vote no, and then it gets to
Okay.
that stage.
I mean, it's disappointing that there's not counsel here. Is there counsel for the board?
Why do we need the council?
Oh, just if there's questions, I mean, it sounds like Rob's asking,
Well, I think
can the board write a letter and there's no feedback from council and?
Well, the answer is no. We
Uh-huh.
know that we cannot do that. So yeah, we cannot influence other boards. We cannot influence each other.
Uh-huh.
Each has an individual vote. But as John said, to get to the next stage, if you wanted to appeal, we'd have to vote in it. And if it's a no, then you would go take the next stage. So would you like us to vote on it, or?
that seems like the most productive course, just to advance
Yeah,
it.
and I mean, I want to say something for the record. I appreciate natural materials greatly. I understand, and that's why my mom chose to go that route in 1999. That is not what's up for debate here. What's up for debate here is the application of the material on this particular home, the situation in that home, and then the pre-existing condition, which I believe I've got evidence of that, previously asphalt, and then the financial hardship. Those are real tangible foundational points that I think, for the record, but with the overlay that I do appreciate natural materials and what the mandate of the board is, and I appreciate the guidelines. So I don't want it to go unsaid, for that to not go unsaid.
I think
Okay?
the worry is specifically here, and the thing it's kind of the last detail that's a block from trying to make an exception for these well-articulated hardships, is that it's always going to be more expensive for anyone, and anyone could raise that same financial hardship argument. And once we've accepted it here, where it may be realer than another instance, but it's going to be invoked.
Well, the other point is a pre-existing asphalt roof, which we have pictures of. So if somebody comes in here and says, well, I have a slate roof and I want to move over, and you allowed them to do that, where's your pictures of it previous to the slate? Do you have any?
I suppose that would be part of the baked-in precedent here.
It is. That's what I'm asking.
And for me, the precedent is, goes back to what the building was originally intended to be.
There's no photos of that.
Right. So, but it certainly wasn't asphalt.
And yet
so-
we know kind of what Bruce Price was working with, or like architect.
So we'll check.
Thank you for your time. So I don't want to prolong the evening anymore. I've, made my points and.
And I think we're all sorry on a human level not to give the desired answer here, but I'm hopeful that we can advance the conversation in this way to the BZA, who were completely empowered without a doubt.
Right. So if we do that, would you like us to vote?
You can take a vote. I want to thank Miss Nicholson again, and that was unsolicited, and to know that the community looks out for one another and understands each other, I think is beyond what any board decision would entail. And I think that's what makes Tuxedo Park special. And so thank you for that. Yeah.
I agree, but totally.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, if I can't advance, I mean, if my only process to get through to another step is to have a vote, then I think, we have to have a vote. I don't determine that though, do I? The board does, right? Or
do.
So yeah, we're happy to vote on it if you, or you can.
yeah, I mean, I can't force.
I think John was saying that the no vote is almost material to advancing it to the BZA.
He has nothing to appeal unless you
Right, so
deny.
so let's do that then.
Okay.
So I would like to make a motion not to approve. Does it work that way, or do I make a motion to approve and then vote no? I've never done this.
Typically, you'd make a motion to approve and then
And say no.
there'd be no votes.
More logical.
So I'd like to make-
Could I just interject for a moment? To me, it's a denial of the use of the material of asphalt at 72 Clubhouse Road. That's really what it is.
It is.
It's whatever their motion is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we can do that, but yeah, so I'd like to make a motion to deny the use or the replacement of a cedar shingle roof with an asphalt roof on 72 Clubhouse Road with a GAF architectural shingle.
Seconded.
So
I, in the affirmative.
All in favor?
Denying this, they're denying the switch, right?
Affirmative
Is
of
that-
negative.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't want to write your resolution. I'm sorry. Go ahead, proceed.
And one last thing, just as a neighbor, maybe just since this is something you'll need to do to try to get the board to expedite it and make an allowance, I think the seasonal issues are very, very relevant. And just to try and get it in as soon as possible.
Thank you
and
for
get a
that.
decision as soon as possible. I'm sorry not to give something else satisfying answer.
Yep, it is what it is. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Sorry
it.
about your mom.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate it.
Cleared
Big loss.
the Tuxedo Road while we were clearing it at your request. We were thinking of your mom.
Yeah, no, she had a great eye for aesthetic and design, and she was well loved by the community. So thank you for
She
that.
sure
Yeah,
was.
yeah. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good
All
night.
right. Have a good evening.
Do we have any minutes to approve?
Thanks, John.
Well, Desiree,
Desiree?
Yes, we do.
May I
Go ahead.
take this? Yeah, and then I'll
The
return it.
minutes of October 7th, 2024.
Well,
We will
there's
have-
Could I put just, I'm
Oh,
sorry,
sorry.
could I just interject for one moment so I'm clear? As a result of this, there was a vote, 3 denials for switching to asphalt.
correct.
The next step for me, if I want to, is to try to do an appeal at the
I will email you a BCA application.
Board of Zoning Appeals,
Board of Zoning
Zoning
Appeals.
Board of
And you'll
Appeals.
be appealing a decision from the Board of Architecture Review. You'll get the minutes when they're available, roughly 3 weeks or so.
And that is the process, because I always thought Board of Zoning Appeals was for things like, lot variances, height variances, different things like that, but they'll hear an appeal from the Architectural Review Board or
Yes.
something like this?
Mhm.
Okay,
And I will check with council tomorrow, but it's my understanding that appeals of the BAR go to the BCA.
thank you. Appreciate it.
And good luck
All
with
right,
it.
take care.
Okay.
Have we all read the minutes?
Yes.
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of October
7th.
7th.
Second.
Second, all in favor? Yes, unanimous.
Yes.
Thank you. Like to make a motion to close the meeting at 7:35 PM.
Good.
Second, meeting closed.
Opposed. Well run.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I hope you didn't take on this.
One minor, ladies.
Hang on one second.
Before you close, can I just ask one question?
Sure.
Just going back to 217 Westlake, I didn't get the complete date that you had said, Christopher, as
The
far as,
last date was October the 11th.
okay. Alrighty, thank you.
Thank you, Desiree.
Thank you.
Sorry to